They say you can't judge a book by its cover, but can you judge a politician by his or her song?
You mean the walk-up music they play before they give a speech?
Yeah, at the Democratic convention last week, the Democrats had 10 candidates come to the stage who hoped to be governor, and each of them got to pick out a special song for when they took the stage.
And they only got about 5 minutes each to speak, so the song had to say a lot about the candidates.
Some of them were unexpected, some of them seemed to fit. Some of them tell us a lot, maybe, about each of the candidates. So we're going to play the intro and talk about the songs on this week's Center Stage with Milfred and Hands. I'm Scott Milfred, the editorial page editor for the Wisconsin State Journal.
And I'm Phil Hands. I'm the editorial cartoonist for the Wisconsin State Journal.
And we are half of the Wisconsin State Journal editorial board.
The better-looking half.
So we weren't at the Democratic convention in Oshkosh.
Thank goodness.
But at least some of the candidates sent out their speeches via email and social media.
And honestly, most of the candidates, I mean, they all don't like Scott Walker. They're all going to make schools better. They're all going to have a living wage, it sounds like. I mean, a lot of the talking points are pretty much the same. But the music's different.
It was very different. And at least a couple of songs stumped the band, so to speak. I didn't know what it was, and neither did you. We had to look it up.
Yeah, that's right.
But once we learned a little more about it, it kind of made sense.
It kind of
I think most of them make a lot of sense.
Maybe in ways the candidates don't wish they made sense.
The last time that we talked about the big 9 Democratic candidates,
we've added one more since
now
then.
there's 10.
Now there's 10.
They're
nice
not getting
round number.
They're not narrowing. We're getting more. Who is first alphabetically?
Tony Evers is always first alphabetically. He also is first in the polls.
And actually, I still think he's the guy to beat. As mild-mannered as he is, he used the Lord's name in vain.
He knows how to speak tough like Donald Trump.
Yeah. Woo.
I thought he picked a great song to walk out to. Let's play it real quick.
Okay, that, of course, is Alice Cooper's School's Out for Summer. That was fun.
That's fun. It feels like it's a great time to play that. It's, kids are getting out of school right now, and it's fun because Tony Evers is the superintendent of schools. He's supposed to love education, but school's out, and he's going to run for governor, I guess.
Alice Cooper's kind of badass, and Tony Evers is not.
Did you see what he was wearing at the convention? I mean, he was wearing like a T-shirt and a sport coat. Like he looked like a rock star, like an aging rock star. So he's really going for it, and he used the Lord's name in vain. He's talking. He wants to, maybe he listened to our podcast. We were talking about maybe he's just too nice to run for governor. So maybe he's going to be riding around on a Harley pretty soon.
Yeah, I think he is trying to convey to the Democratic faithful that he can fight. He can be a fighter, and he can swear, and gosh darn it, he can have the School's Out for Summer song. I thought it was funny.
I thought that was a good choice for him. I thought it was actually really funny. Unfortunately, the best part of his entire speech was the intro and the song because he kind of goofed the rest of the speech. I thought, you got 5 minutes to convince the faithful that you're the guy who's going to stand up to Scott Walker and be the candidate. And he kind of stumbled over some words here and there. He didn't seem like he was super prepared, which is kind of disappointing considering that he's the front runner and this is his chance to show I'm the front runner and I'm here to lead the party.
On the other hand, even if it's contrived, where he said he is goddamn sick and tired of Scott Walker cutting education and disrespecting teachers or whatever the exact line was, it did get a lot of attention. And so
I even drew a cartoon about it. So.
Yeah. So, hey, whatever political consultant told him to do that, I think it worked in just the sense that he got attention when 10 people were trying to get attention in this race, and B, okay, it gave him a little bit of an edge.
Maybe.
But it was, I thought, the funnest and funniest and clever walk-on music.
Yeah, it was. It was good.
Next up was Matt Flynn.
Matt Flynn.
The man with the hair. And
played a song from a guy who's got awesome hair, too.
Yes, James Brown. He played I Feel Good.
Welcome to the stage, Matt Flynn.
Wow, I feel good.
What this made me think of right away was, remember when Hillary Clinton, she fell over and there was the question in the campaign of, is Hillary okay? What's wrong with her? She needs to release her medical information. And then when she took some time off of the campaign and she came back, her first rally, they cranked that song, I Feel Good by James Brown. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, does Matt Flynn feel good about this race, or what do you think? Why did he pick that, do you suppose?
Well, first of all, it speaks to his age. You know, he's going to try and connect to young voters with a song from the 1960s, which always works well. I mean, he's talking to the baby booming base. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun song to play. Maybe if I had been the lawyer for the archdiocese defending against priests who were molested children, I wouldn't have played the song I Feel Good.
On the other hand, he's the guy that's made the biggest point of legalizing marijuana.
I guess he does feel good about that.
So maybe lots of potheads feel good about that.
Yeah, I thought he gave a decent speech. I mean, I thought he gave a much better speech than Tony Evers did. It was very straightforward, talked about his history. He introduced us to him, which a lot of people don't know who he is because he hasn't been in politics for, 20 years or something like that. So I thought his speech, did a good job of introducing himself and talking about his issues that he cared about. But
I thought his speech was pretty good, too, especially compared to the debate I saw. I thought it was upbeat, and he was on point, and he called the Foxconn deal a crooked deal. He had some, lawyerly words there to disparage what Scott Walker's doing. But, yeah, I mean, they didn't play it that long either.
No.
The music, and then it was like, it's done. I'm talking. So, but, all right. Andy Gronick was up next.
Gronick was up next, yeah, and he played Let's Get It Started by the Black Eyed Peas.
All right, let's get it started. Who is here to beat Scott Walker?
So what do you make of that?
Well, I think it's clearly pandering to a younger generation. He seems a little bit old to be getting it started, if it were.
I thought his speech was pretty upbeat. I thought his speech was one of the better ones just because he came out with a lot of energy and walked around and wanted to be this new, fresh guy. So I guess it fit.
I guess so.
What he was trying to do.
I don't know. Something about old white guys playing hip hop music as they walk onto stage just doesn't mesh for me.
Hey, he's not that much older than I am.
He's not that much. But he also was long-winded too, and he ended up getting cut off at the end of his speech. I think so they turned off the mic on him.
Yeah. He was the only one that seemed to have to finish in silence. The next one up, I apologize to say this to all my rock and roller friends, but I needed a little help identifying the Led Zeppelin song that Malin Mitchell played when he came up.
It's called Immigrant Song, by Led Zeppelin.
Please welcome to the stage, Malin Mitchell.
I was looking at the lyrics, and it's maybe about some Vikings invading somewhere.
So, I will say, it's interesting. So a old white guy playing a song by black rappers didn't work. But a young black guy playing a song by old white rock and rollers worked very well for me, I thought. I thought this was kind of fun. Maybe it's kind of reference to, Malin Mitchell's. Maybe he's had the Firefighters Union. Maybe he goes around the country a little bit, traveling for the firefighters and stuff like that. And he's from Wisconsin, the land of the ice and snow. Maybe that's sort of the reference there. I mean, we all live in Wisconsin. It's all land, ice, and snow. But it was a fun song. It's a great song. My wife loves Led Zeppelin, and it's an awesome song. And there's a good scream halfway through it. And
it's another one of those where the song's lyrics are literally about fighting.
Yeah,
I think
that's about Vikings, crushing the Brits and taking over their country. So
it's got that going for it, and he swore too. By the way, he said he's going to work like hell. Ooh. But I thought his speech was pretty good. I mean, all the union stuff. I'm not sure I'm jumping in on all of his talking points here, but I think he gave a really good speech. He's got that low voice. I've said this before, like Obama, and he's definitely a fresh face and a lot of energy.
I think he's a guy that could be a good candidate for the Democrats. I think a lot of these candidates aren't great candidates. I think Malin Mitchell's probably got a lot of flaws to him too, but he might be a guy that would give Scott Walker a run for his money. I don't know, but he gives a good speech. He fires up a crowd. He's engaging to watch, and he's got a good kind of personal story about why he's a firefighter, and he's the head of the Firefighters Union, which is the one good conservative union, right? Don't conservatives like the firefighters? So
I guess, but they usually go Democratic. I mean, they love Doyle, and I just don't know about a union leader as the pick for the Democrats going against Walker. But hey, we'll see.
Yeah.
Next up was Mike McCabe. Another song I did not recognize, but I did like, hey, somebody's going with country music.
Except it's not quite country music.
It sounded like it.
This is Avicii's Hey Brother.
It's sort of about, I glanced at the lyrics on that too, it's sort of about help you if the sky comes down. I guess the sky has come down because of Walker, and this fiery McCabe speech is going to bring Wisconsin back, is sort of his message, and we can dream about universal basic income, which I think is just we give everybody money if they're breathing. And
you can dare to dream, as Mike McCabe said over and over.
Dare to dream.
Dare to dream.
But some of his stuff is some of that I was like, operating the state on all alternative energy. Hey, we're going to get there someday. So some of it I thought was fine. But what'd you think of his song? What's he saying there?
Well, I think what's interesting about the song is I think he picked it because it's got kind of a cool lyric about we're going to take care of you, and I'm going to take my sisters and brothers are working together.
Which is a kind of a union thing.
Union theme. But I think what's really interesting about the whole song pick is that it sort of sounds like you're folksy and down to earth, but it's written by a Swedish DJ. So it's just like I think Mike McCabe wants to sound like he's folksy and down to earth, but he spent the last 30 years in Madison being a political insider.
Yeah, he often talks about he's the only candidate of the 10 that grew up on a farm. But he hasn't been living on a farm anytime recently.
Yeah, so I think his song sort of belies a little bit of his ingenuineness when it comes to his talking points about the race.
Next up, we had Josh Pade
with the best song of the night.
I didn't know what that one was, but it's not really a song, a rock and roll song. It was the theme to Game of Thrones.
Absolutely, the best show ever on television.
Okay, and I had to have you explain it to me because Democrats. He said we're going to defeat a walker. Like Game of Thrones, we're going to defeat a walker. So what does that mean?
Well, in Game of Thrones, the White Walkers are the bad guys in the show. They are these mythical creatures that can they can raise the dead and launch these armies of frozen zombies throughout the north, and they're going to take over all of Westeros, the country in Game of Thrones. So the walkers are all the bad guys.
Okay, so I guess he was right then too when he said it was going to be an inside joke to all the nerds.
Thank you, Scott. I'm a Game of Thrones nerd and darn proud of it. I think
the bigger question here is, can you explain who is Josh Pade?
No, I can't.
I mean, he just came on the scene. He's running. I guess he's some kind of insider. He said he was out on Capitol Hill, worked out there. Now he's been working on campaigns. He was identified as, political activist, but I don't know. I never heard of him. He did have a couple interesting things to say about you can be pro-growth and progressive, that those aren't opposing values. I mean, he seemed like he was sort of the younger guy focusing on, startup businesses and broadband. And
the best thing about him is that his headshot for his campaign was taken in this diner in Kenosha that I've been to. It's actually really good. It's in this train car, which is kind of cool.
Okay, but apparently, though, if you know what Game of Thrones is and you know the whole narrative, that was a pretty clever thing to do, or not?
It's okay.
Okay. Kelda Roys was up next. She played Roar by Katy Perry. Hey, I know that. I watched the Super Bowl. I know that song.
And you have two teenage girls, too.
Oh, yeah. So I definitely know that song. But what's she saying by playing Roar?
I mean, she's a woman, and that song is sort of about, I'm a woman. I'm not going to be scared anymore. You're going to hear me roar. I'm going to show you who I am. And I think that's a perfect song for Kelda's campaign. She's running as a mom who's nursing, seems like all the time, and she's proud of who she is. She's proud of being a mom and a woman, and she's going to take it to the male establishment and be the candidate of the future. The
lyric in the song is "Got the eye of the tiger, fighter." So it's right out there. She's saying, I'm going to be a fighter. They all want to be a fighter. What'd you think just more generally about the speech? I mean, I thought it was an okay speech.
She won the straw poll, which I think her speech went over well with that audience there. I thought it was a good speech, but I'm younger too, Scott, and she's of my generation.
No, I think it was a fine speech, actually. I think there were just a couple phrases in there where I sort of grimaced, like where she said our kids are tested to exhaustion at schools.
Oh, yeah, well.
And, there's one.
You were paying closer attention than I was.
There's one state test they take, and then, Madison does some more testing on its own just to try to track kids so we know how we're doing. Anyway, I digress. I'm getting into real issues here.
Real issues, not in the campaign speech.
We want to talk about music and political themes.
I think she's going to, she won the straw poll. She's coming out of this convention. She's the winner of this convention, I think. I think she gave probably the most solid speech of all the candidates. I think people really responded to her. I think when the next poll comes out, she's going to be in that top 4 to get you that coveted spot on the debate, if that's still what's going on. She's made some waves in this race, especially with that video where she nurses on the video during her campaign video. That was national news. People were covering that all across the country. So she's getting some name recognition. People are talking about her. She's creating some buzz. So maybe the rest of the candidates should watch out for.
By the way, I'm backtracking a bit, but Josh Pade said it's a myth that Democrats are angry. I guess he didn't see the speech by our next person up, Paul Soglin. And by the way, also, I thought Mike McCabe seemed kind of angry.
Yeah, there's some
I don't
anger.
think it's a myth. I think the Democrats are angry.
You know what's a myth? Josh Pate is governor.
Paul Soglin comes up with Jackie Wilson's Higher and Higher.
Now,
is this another drug reference?
if I was known as the hippie red mayor from the 1960s, maybe I wouldn't have gone with Higher and Higher as my song.
Well, the lyrics are, your love lifting me higher and higher.
Does anybody love Paul Soglin enough to lift him up higher and higher? We tolerate Paul Soglin.
I thought he had the line that caught me the most unexpected line, where he was talking about when he's taken on, whether it's the corporations, whatever. But at one point he said, I've taken on recalcitrant unions.
Yeah.
And people were, everybody was like, what?
What do you mean? Unions are wonderful.
And then he said, to make sure that they paid women the same as men. So so I'm sure everybody was like, oh yeah,
It's okay.
that's cool. It's cool. He said he's another one who said he was going to dismantle the Foxconn deal. I'm starting to wonder, can they really dismantle or take apart this deal that was signed with Foxconn in the same way that the governor took apart the federal deal for this high-speed train? Or can't they?
I'm wondering if that's
broken ground.
We ended up paying that deal with the train. We ended up paying some Spanish training company quite a bit of money to close their facility they built in Wisconsin. So just because stuff is broken ground and stuff's in the work doesn't mean that it can't be canceled.
All right, next up was Kathleen Weinhaut, who came up with sort of an odd dance. She was the one who was kind of dancing and I think sort of lip-syncing her song.
Yeah, she really likes that song.
All Fired Up by Pat Benatar. I'm saying that like Casey Kasem. That was All Fired Up by Pat Benatar.
I want to say, I think that's a perfect song for Kathleen Weinhaut because it was cool in the 80s when Kathleen was, it just seems like I think Kathleen probably has a lot of things. If this was a normal race and she was, I think she's got a lot of things going for her. She's not the most liberal person in the race. She can talk about rural issues. She can talk about guns in a way that doesn't turn everybody off who's ever owned a gun in Wisconsin. I think there's a lot going for her as a candidate, but she's lost running for governor, and people don't like losers.
Especially Donald Trump.
And this is a race where it's going to be about youth and firing up the base, and she is not a base fire-upper.
Yeah, she did get some attention from her speech for saying if you lined up in $100 bills the subsidy that Foxconn is going to get, it would stretch from Racine County all the way to the ocean past San Francisco.
It's a good visual metaphor.
Yeah. So I thought that was the best part of her speech. Finally, we have Dana Wachs, who came in with a song I don't think either one of us had ever heard of, but upon listening to it, we agreed it sounded pretty cool.
It might have been the best song anybody chose, actually, in terms of just a song in and of itself.
It was Michelle Malone doing Just Getting Started. Michelle Malone with Just Getting Started. That's my Casey Kasem. Do you know who Casey Kasem is?
I know who Casey Kasem is, Scott. Jeez.
All right.
Please welcome to the stage Representative Dana Wachs.
You can't stop me now. I'm just getting started. Just getting started.
The only thing is, so I went and looked at the lyrics, and it starts out, it's talking about Moses, just getting started. Then it goes to Martin Luther King, and the second verse is just getting started. And now Dana Wax is just getting started. I don't know.
That's a kind of odd comparison.
But it was a cool song. At least the guy knows what he's got good taste.
He's got a good taste in music. I think that's probably the best thing going for Dana Wax right now.
Now, it'll be interesting to see. Some candidates adopt a song throughout their campaign. Some of them don't. They just run it once in a while. But one of the fun things that reporters watch for is if there's, if they can point out something witty about the song when the person came in, or the artist says, I don't want you to be using my song. And that's happened a lot in Wisconsin. The Dropkick Murphys.
An awesome band.
They told Scott Walker to stop playing his song and told them that we literally hate you in 2005. Previously, they had told then Assembly Speaker Jeff Fitzgerald to stop playing it when I believe he was running for U.S. Senate. Yeah, and there was kind of a funny line about that because when they told him to stop using it, Jeff Fitzgerald said, us Republicans only have like 3 songs we can use. John Cougar Mellencamp.
John Mellon Cougar Camp?
He also had told Scott Walker to stop using his song Small Town back in 2014. Phil, if you were running for governor, or let's say you were running for King Cartoonist of the World, when you came onto the stage to just jazz up the crowd and get everybody excited, what song would you play?
Well, I've decided, I thought about this. This is something I thought about a lot. And it would be Hard to Handle, which is an Otis Redding song, but it'd be the Grateful Dead cover of it.
It's got to be the Grateful Dead.
Which is it's just an awesome song. It's got awesome dueling guitars in it, and it's got Pigpen screeching over the mic, and it's Otis Redding, who died in Madison. And it's sort of an R&B song. I'm from Detroit and the whole Motown sound thing, so it sort of speaks to me in all sorts of different levels.
But what would it speak to the voting, either cartoonists or populists that would vote for you? What message would it send about you?
So I'm so hot, I'm hard to handle.
All right, now I came up with mine really quick when you asked me, right?
You did.
It's The Blue Mask by Lou Reed, which just totally rocks.
Which I kind of say, this is music?
Yeah. See, you're the old man in this room.
Turn it down, Scott. It's too loud.
Find and follow our podcast, Center Stage with Milfred and Hands, on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.